The run should have cleared my head. 5 miles through the morning chill, the kind of air that bites your lungs and makes you feel clean, like you're shedding all the bullshit of the week with every step. My feet hit the pavement in a rhythm I didn't have to think about, and for a while it worked. That silence inside, the stillness. I almost believed it was permanent, that I could carry it back with me, into the house, into our lives. I was wrong. The front door creaked open the way it always did, but something about the way it echoed through the house didn't sit right. There was no music playing, no voices from the TV, no clatter of dishes, just a strange stillness, not the peaceful kind, but the sort that presses against your chest, like the house was holding its breath. My sneakers squeaked against the hardwood as I stepped into the kitchen. That's when I saw it, a broken cup on the floor, shattered into a mess of jagged white pieces that caught the light like teeth. Dark liquid pooled beneath it, spreading slowly, seeping into the grout between the tiles. I bent down, fingertips brushing the edge of the puddle. Sticky, cold, and not coffee. The smell hit me, a sour, fermented sharpness that curled in my nose. Wine, red wine, at 7 in the damn morning. I stood there staring at the spill, my mind catching up in pieces. Amy didn't drink in the morning, not ever. Coffee was her thing, black, 2 sugars, every day like clockwork. Wine was for evenings, weekends maybe, when the kids were asleep. Not now, not here, and not alone. Before I could process more, she appeared in the doorway, barefoot, hair tousled like she'd just rolled out of bed, wearing that gray sweater of mine that always hung too loose on her. She didn't look guilty, just startled. Then came the laugh, light, casual, just enough to brush it all away. "Oh, I dropped a cup of juice," she said, moving past me, grabbing a towel like it was no big deal. My hands were wet, clumsy. Juice. That's what she said. I didn't say anything, just nodded, wiped up the stain while she started the coffee, and listened to the clinking of dishes like everything was fine. But that smell stuck in my head long after the floor was clean. I wanted to believe it was nothing, that maybe she poured herself a glass for some strange reason, maybe couldn't sleep, that she wasn't hiding anything. I wanted to believe that. Weeks passed. The memory faded, not gone, just buried under the weight of daily life. I focused on work, on the kids, on anything that kept my mind from going back to that morning. Amy was herself mostly, smiling, laughing, doing all the things that made it easy to think I was just overthinking. But still, something in me shifted. I started noticing things I never paid attention to before. Her phone was always face down. She'd step outside to take calls sometimes, and her texts had become silent flashes on her screen, the content hidden by privacy settings she'd never used before. It wasn't enough to accuse, just enough to make me uneasy. Then came the bracelet. It was a Sunday afternoon, sun streaming in through the blinds while I wrestled on the couch with our daughter Lucy. Her laughter filled the room, bright and infectious. For a while I forgot everything. Forgot the red wine. Forgot the unease. Her giggles were enough to drown it out, until I shifted my weight and felt something hard jab into my thigh through the cushion. I reached under, expecting to pull out a toy or some long-lost remote. What I found made my breath catch. It was delicate, silver or platinum, cool against my skin. A bracelet, not cheap or flashy, but expensive in that understated way. Thin links, small embedded stones, tasteful, costly, and not something I'd ever seen before. My pulse quickened as I turned it over, fingers tracing the inside. That's when I saw the engraving. DR. I froze. My mind raced. DR. Who the hell was DR? Not our kids' initials. Not Amy's, not mine. No family members. No friends. No one we knew. At least, no one I knew. Amy walked in then, carrying a basket of folded laundry, and I instinctively slid the bracelet into my pocket. That night after dinner, I brought it up. Casual, careful. "Hey, I found this in the couch," I said, holding it up. She glanced at it, didn't blink. "Oh, that's from a friend, a gift." "A friend?" "Yeah, Dana. Or maybe it was Rachel. You know how they are, always giving each other little things." Her smile didn't falter, but something about the way her hand hovered near her mouth, how her eyes darted for just a second before landing back on mine. It all felt rehearsed. I nodded, said nothing more. But the air between us shifted again, the way it had that morning in the kitchen. Except now it didn't settle. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat in the dark with that bracelet in my hand, turned it over and over until the letters blurred. DR. It burned itself into my brain. And the truth settled heavy in my chest. I hadn't bought it. No one in her circle matched the initials. And she'd lied straight to my face. The envelope was thin, no return address, just my name written in shaky penmanship across the front. Like whoever sent it hadn't decided until the last second that they would. It arrived on a Tuesday, stuffed between bills and junk mail, nothing to mark it as different, until I tore it open and my hand started shaking. Inside, a single photo. Amy, laughing, her arm wrapped around a man I didn't recognize. They weren't kissing, not quite, but it didn't matter. Their bodies pressed together too close, too familiar. His hand on her waist, her head tilted just enough to make it clear this wasn't some accidental contact. The background was unmistakable. The school stadium, just beyond the playground where I used to take our son for soccer practice. I stood in the driveway for a long time, staring at that image. My brain kept trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was old, maybe it meant nothing, maybe it was just a bad angle. But the pit in my stomach had no doubt. I waited until the house was empty before I made the call. Dan, an old friend from high school who'd ended up working with the police, owed me a favor, or 5. I didn't tell him much, just that I needed to know who the man was, if there was any record, any name to put to that face. He didn't ask questions, just told me he'd see what he could find. That night at dinner, Amy talked about school, about Lucy's drawing, about weekend plans. I watched her hands as she moved them, watched the way her eyes flicked to her phone every time it lit up. And all I could think about was that photo, burned into my mind like a brand. I didn't sleep much after that. Couldn't. Every noise in the house felt louder. Every creak of the floorboards made me wonder if I was the only one awake. By Thursday, I'd made a decision. I left work early, drove straight to an electronics store across town, paid in cash for a voice recorder. Small, discreet, easy to hide. The guy behind the counter barely looked up as he rang it up. But in my head, it felt like everyone knew, like they could see it on my face, the weight of betrayal pressing behind my eyes. Back home, I waited for Amy to leave for her Pilates class, watched from the window as she walked to the car, smiled down at her phone, and drove off without noticing me standing there in the shadows of the hallway. I moved fast, opened her car door, heart pounding so loud I was sure the neighbors could hear it. Found a spot under the passenger seat where the recorder could sit unnoticed, wires tucked away. Switched it on, closed the door. Hands shaking, I stood in the driveway staring at the house, wondering when exactly it had stopped feeling like mine. That night after she was asleep, I retrieved the recorder, listened through hours of nothing, traffic, static, music, then her voice, and his. She called him David. Her tone was different, lighter, younger almost, like she'd peeled off some version of herself and left the real one for him. I sat there in the dark, hunched over my laptop, listening to her laugh in a way she hadn't around me in months, maybe longer. And then, clear as day, her words. I hate how he chews. I stopped breathing. It was about me. I didn't need to ask. She said it with a sneer in her voice, low and bitter, like a secret she was too ashamed to tell me, but happy to share with him. I didn't hear much else after that. My ears were ringing and my hands were numb. I left the recorder on the table, stared at it like it might offer answers I didn't want, and the rage that had been simmering, barely kept in check, started to boil. Not loud, not explosive, just steady, like something inside me had finally decided it had had enough. I started carrying the photo in my pocket, not for proof, just to remind myself I wasn't going crazy, that what I saw was real, that the warmth in her eyes when she looked at him wasn't the same as the dead, distant gaze she gave me. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask. I waited, watched, kept the smile on my face and played the part of the oblivious husband because something told me the more I stayed quiet, the more she'd reveal. Dan called a few days later, Said the man's name was David Reynolds. Teacher at the school, track coach, early 40s. Divorced, no kids. He didn't ask why I wanted to know, just gave me the name and let the silence hang. David Reynolds. DR. It hit me so hard I had to sit down. The bracelet, his initials, not Dana, not Rachel. David Reynolds. The truth settled like cement in my chest, thick and suffocating. I couldn't sleep, couldn't work, couldn't think without seeing their faces, hearing her laugh on that recording. The way she said she hated how I chewed, like I was some repulsive thing she had to endure. I thought about that bracelet, how it ended up in our couch, in our home, near our daughter. And every time I tried to picture Amy, all I saw was that man's hands on her. My hands curled into fists without me realizing it. I made a decision, told Amy I had to leave town for a work conference. She didn't ask questions, just nodded, barely looking up from her phone. I packed a bag, put it in the car, and drove a block before circling back on foot, slipping through the backyard gate like a goddamn thief in my own home. Waited until night fell. The house lights flickered off one by one. Then just before midnight, a car pulled into the driveway. Not mine, not hers. A sedan, dark blue. The engine cut and a shadow moved up the walk. I stayed hidden, barely breathing, muscles tight. Then I saw it. A footprint, clear, deep, and fresh in the wet soil by the porch. Larger than mine, the sole a different pattern, boots maybe. The weight of it made the mud squish out around the edges. Whoever it was, they just walked through rain. My shoes sat dry in the car. I knelt by the mark, fingers tracing the outline. My heart didn't race. It didn't need to. I already knew. He'd been here, in my home, near my kids, with my wife. I didn't go inside, didn't need to. I just walked back to the car, sat behind the wheel, and stared at the empty street until dawn came. The next morning, I walked into the office like a ghost. My team looked up, but no one said anything. I was behind on everything, calls, emails, deadlines. The phone rang, and I answered, barely hearing the client on the other end, before something in me snapped. Words came out, sharp, loud, uncontrolled. I don't even remember what I said, but I remember the silence after, the looks, the closed office door, and the reprimand that followed. I didn't argue, just nodded, apologized, walked out. I didn't care about the job. I didn't care about anything. At home, I stared at Amy across the dinner table, watching her move through the motions, watching the way she chewed, the way her lips moved, the sound of it, the way she dabbed at her mouth with a napkin. Every detail magnified, grating. That night, I sat at the table long after the kids went to bed, the bracelet in one hand, the photo in the other, and the words from the recording echoed in my head over and over. I hate how he chews. I didn't sleep. I didn't need to. By morning, I had a plan. The photo sat in my hand like a dead thing, dusty, faded at the edges. Our wedding day, Amy in white, her hand in mine, eyes locked on the camera like she believed in something, like we both believed. I used to look at this picture and feel proud. Now it felt like a joke, a lie caught in glossy paper. I didn't hesitate. I took it to the garage, struck a match, watched the flames lick at the edge, curl through our faces, blacken our smiles. The heat climbed up my arm as the fire ate it whole. Amy's smile warped first, then her eyes, and finally her hand in mine vanished into ash. The smoke curled around me like a memory I couldn't shake. That was the night I stopped wondering why she did it. I didn't need answers anymore. I needed to know everything she was hiding. The next day, I waited until she left to pick up the kids. Her laptop was on the kitchen counter, screen dark, password protected, but not from me. She wasn't the only one who could play secrets. It took minutes. I knew her patterns, her recovery questions, the subtle places she stored passwords. Once inside, I dug, email first, dozens of messages, some normal, some coded, but one thread stood out. Correspondence with a lawyer, not just any lawyer, divorce lawyer, quiet, precise, cold. Subject lines read, custody options, asset separation, transfer schedule. Every word a knife. Attached were scanned documents, bank transfers, forms I never signed, a separate account. Funds moved from our joint savings, siphoned out in pieces like she thought I wouldn't notice. Thousands gone. There were dates, and behind every date, a lie. I clicked through faster, scanning for details, absorbing each one like a hit to the chest. Then I saw it, another email, shorter, to someone named D. I opened it. One line. Almost free, just a little longer. I've got everything ready. I didn't need to guess who D was. My fingers curled around the edge of the laptop until the plastic creaked. The rage didn't spike. It settled, heavy, controlled. I wasn't furious. I was clear. I copied every document, screenshots, PDFs. I dumped them all to a flash drive and hid it where she'd never find it. Then I deleted the email from the trash, wiped my prints from the keyboard. She came home an hour later, kids in tow, smile on her face like nothing had changed. I looked at her hands, empty, no ring. She hadn't worn it in weeks, claimed it irritated her skin, claimed a lot of things. I helped set the table, watched her laugh with the kids, watched her pour a glass of wine and pretend it was just another Thursday. But I knew the truth now. She was planning to leave, planning to take everything. She just didn't realize I was already gone, and that I had plans of my own. I watched her car pull out of the driveway, tires crunching over gravel, and waited until she was gone before pulling out my phone. The screen lit up with Dan's message, a simple one. David Reynolds, teacher. School stadium's camera caught them last week. Want the footage? No hesitation. Yes. An hour later, I sat in my car behind the school gym, watching grainy security footage play on loop. Amy leaning against a wall, David close. Too close. She looked up at him, smiled the same smile I once thought was mine alone. His hand slid behind her back. Her fingers curled into his jacket. Then he kissed her, right there in plain sight, like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. I didn't blink, didn't rage, just sat there, burning every second into my mind. I'd asked for the truth, and now I had it. David Reynolds, the man who taught my son math and walked the same halls I once volunteered in, had been fucking my wife behind my back, and now he was going to pay for it. I scheduled the meeting with the school principal for Monday, brought a printed folder, photos, recordings, emails. No accusations, just evidence. His expression shifted with every page, from confusion to discomfort to barely restrained fury. David was fired within 48 hours. No drama, no confrontation, just silence and consequence. Amy found out through a phone call. I heard her from the living room, her voice cracking, panic rising. She paced, clutched her phone like it might save her. It didn't. She stumbled into the kitchen, her face pale, hands shaking. David, they let him go, she whispered, eyes searching mine. I didn't say a word, just stood there, arms crossed, waiting for her to lie. She didn't, just turned and left the room. The next morning she tried a different tactic. Came into my office at home, eyes red, voice low. We need to talk about the business. Her tone had shifted. No more smiles, no more soft pleas. I leaned back in my chair, waiting. If you make this divorce ugly, she said, I'll sue. Emotional damage. I can prove distress, manipulation, control. Her words were practiced, cold. You'll lose the business. You'll lose everything. I laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even real. Just a short, hollow sound. Funny, I said, because I already filed a police report. Her face twisted. You withdrew funds from our joint account without consent. Financial fraud. That's a crime, Amy. Interrogations in 2 days. I'd prepare if I were you. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Just silence. I stood, stepping past her, watching her chest rise and fall. Shallow, quick. That night we argued. Loud, messy. The kids heard. I saw their faces at the top of the stairs, wide-eyed, scared. And then, the words that hit harder than any punch. Dad, doesn't she love us anymore? My youngest. Barely 7, voice trembling. Amy froze. I didn't. I packed bags, called my sister, took the kids, left the house, left her alone in that silence she created. And for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. She called 3 times before noon. I didn't answer. Let it ring out. Watch the name flicker on the screen like it belonged to a stranger. Amy, just Amy now. Not babe, not love. Just a name tied to wreckage. I wasn't at the house. I stayed at my sister's with the kids, far from the mess. Far from her. That weekend I made another call. Marcus, an old friend. Or he used to be, until Amy destroyed that too. Years ago, he'd trusted her with something. His business. She'd advised him through his first deal, promised help, guidance, support. Instead, she sold him out for a better offer, left him to drown while she walked away clean. Marcus had never forgiven her. Now he didn't have to. We met at a coffee shop across town. I laid out the situation. Photos, audio, everything. He didn't need convincing. I'll do it, he said without hesitation. It wasn't just about me. It was about her and the trail of people she'd burned while keeping that polished, perfect image intact. The setup was simple. Amy thought she was meeting a potential client. Marcus had posed as a buyer, called through a fake number, requested her personally. A coffee meeting at the same upscale cafe she used to drag me to for networking. I didn't go. I didn't need to. I waited outside, parked far enough away to be unseen, close enough to watch. She arrived early, dressed sharp, makeup perfect, playing the role like she hadn't been unraveling for weeks. She took a seat by the window, legs crossed, phone in hand, pretending control. Then Marcus walked in. Her face cracked the moment she saw him. Not fear, recognition, guilt. It flashed across her eyes, and before she could stand, he was at the table, pulling out a chair. They didn't shake hands. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw them hit. One by one, her posture collapsed. From poised to cornered, her hand covered her mouth, eyes darting around the room, desperate for escape. Then she broke. She shoved the chair back, stumbled to her feet, tears streaking down her face as she bolted out of the cafe, nearly knocking over a server. People stared. Phones came out. Someone filmed her wiping her eyes, swearing under her breath, tripping over herself as she fumbled for her car keys. She didn't see me. I watched her drive off, tires screeching, hands white-knuckled on the wheel. Let her run. Back at the house, I made another call, this time to people who mattered. My friends, men who had stood by me, watched this mess unfold, and waited for the day we could do something. We spent the afternoon gathering everything. The photo, the recordings, the bracelet, her emails, her lies. Then came the fire. Her things, clothes, photos, letters, went up in flames in the yard. We filmed it all. Every spark, every word. No narration, just facts. Her face, her betrayal, her destruction. By nightfall, the video was live. A local community group, hundreds of members, faces we all knew. Within an hour, comments flooded in. Shock, disbelief, outrage. Amy's perfect world cracked like glass. She called again. I didn't pick up. Her text came just before dawn. Please, just talk to me. One last time. I need your help. She didn't know the meaning of need. Not like I did, watching our kids cry, watching their lives splinter while she protected him. But I read the message again. Slow. Calm. It was the plea of a woman with nothing left to hide behind. I answered. Fine. Cafe Leora, noon. The place we first met, where she spilled her coffee, cursed under her breath, and laughed when I offered to buy her another. Where it all started. Where it would end. But not with me. I didn't go. Instead, my lawyer did. I stood across the street, parked behind tinted glass, watching her arrive. She dressed carefully, hair curled, heels sharp, like presentation might erase betrayal. She took the same seat by the window, fingers drumming on the table, eyes darting to the door. She looked for me like I still belonged to her. Then he arrived. Not David, not her knight in shattered armor. The lawyer, briefcase in hand, emotionless. He didn't sit, just opened the folder and slid the papers across the table. Divorce, custody termination, asset division, all legal, all final. Amy's face cracked before she even touched them. She looked around, eyes wide, mouth opening in protest, in panic. She reached for the lawyer's arm. He stepped back, said something, one line, and left her there, alone. She didn't move. Then her phone rang. She answered it. I saw the moment the words hit. Her body jerked forward, eyes wild, frantic. She pressed the phone to her ear, shaking her head, whispering something like, "No, no, no," over and over. The call ended. Her fingers hovered, numb. Then she saw me, outside the cafe, across the street. Not alone. The kids stood beside me, bags in hand. And next to me, Haley, someone new, someone real. Not a replacement, just a woman who knew the truth and chose to stand with me anyway. Amy stumbled from the cafe like she couldn't breathe, hands trembling, mouth open in a silent scream. The people around her turned, watched, filmed. Her voice cracked the quiet street. "Thomas, wait, please." I didn't. We got in the car, drove off. She stood there, arms shaking, surrounded by a crowd that didn't look away this time. No hiding, no escape. And I didn't say a word. Not then. Not ever again. The ocean wind hit different. Not the chill of doubt or the sting of betrayal. This was clean air, honest. The kind that blew through your ribs and cleared out the rot. I stood barefoot in the sand, watching Lucy chase the dog along the shoreline, her laughter carried by the breeze. Beside me, Haley held a thermos of coffee, eyes squinting against the sun. No words passed between us. None were needed. My eldest, Jake, held up his catch. A flopping fish, small but proud. His grin stretched wide, the same grin I hadn't seen in months. Not since the night the house turned cold and Amy's mask slipped for good. The fire pit crackled behind us. The kids danced around it, marshmallows in hand, dog barking, tails wagging. I sat back, knees in the sand, and read to them from a weather-worn book. Stories of pirates and adventure, heroes who didn't wear capes, just courage. Their eyes widened with every word, clutching blankets around their shoulders, faces lit by flame. Then the phone buzzed in my bag. Her name, Amy, again. I didn't answer, just stared at the screen, the notification bar flashing one new email. She never stopped writing. Please, apologies, promises soaked in desperation, as if words could undo it all. I didn't open it, didn't need to. The phone went back in the bag, buried beneath towels and jackets. Out of sight. Lucy curled up beside me, head against my arm. Jake threw another log on the fire, sparks leaping into the night. For the first time in forever, there was peace. No lies, no second guessing. Just the sound of waves, laughter, and the fire's steady pulse. Amy's world was gone. Not burned in a blaze of fury, but cut away piece by piece until she stood with nothing. Her name in every mouth, her face on every screen, exposed, hollow, and utterly alone. I didn't need to watch her fall. I had everything I needed right here. The past could scream all it wanted. I wasn't listening anymore. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this, and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.